I one of my it's so weird because sometimes I'll be on YouTube and I'll get recommended my own video. And this morning, I got recommended to watch my old video, which is I made Asta versus Deku like 5 years ago on my other channel, Broku 72. And I actually watched it. I'm like, it's so weird listening to me from 5 years ago. But man, I was a true visionary on the Asta versus Deku shit. Like, I remember at that time, before I made that video, nobody thought that Asta could win. And everybody said that either Asta was too weak or he had no scaling because of his anti-magic. And I still, like, I saw, like, on the video, somebody commented that Asta's only building level and subsonic speed. Because they say that Asta's building level because he can only split the spade base in half and not destroy it. And he has never broken the sound barrier from moving. Which, like, being a YouTuber and, like, being a YouTuber talking about a lot of Black Clover power scaling, it's kind of funny. Because, like, you run into some of the wildest interpretations of power scaling ever. There is fifth dimensional, like 5D Black Clover scaling, which it's not valid or sound or anything. There are like outer-versal Black Clover metas, quote unquote. And do I think Asta and Nozel are related? Because power scaling is a mixture of interpretation and like objectivity. For some verses, a character will do something and somebody will do the same thing in a different verse, but they'll look at that as a lesser feat or that it's not valid or whatever. Or some people will allow multipliers for one verse but won't allow them for the other verse and shit like that. Yeah, power scaling is just interesting. Like you can just like make shit up and then very loosely correlate it to something else or relate it to something else in the series as like evidence of backing, and people will believe it. Like, I have discussed people before. There were some times where I would mess with people in like a very innocent way, where I would just make up a meta Black Clover and they'd believe it. Partly it's probably because they just believe that because I said it. Because some people will do that. They'll just take everything I say and believe it to be 100% true. Which I am right on a lot of things, but I have been wrong before. I was thinking, like, what fucking wild meta could I make up on the spot for Black Clover to make it super fucking broken that actually has at least a shred of evidence? And I came up with the Multiversal Black Clover meta in my head the other day. I think I was doing cardio and I was just bored, didn't know what to watch, so I just started listening to music and I'm like, dude, what can make Black Clover multiversal? And I just started making shit up, but actually giving at least some support for it. Now, this is a meta that I 100% do not believe, so don't like think that I'm actually arguing that Black Clover is multiversal. If you ever want a meme or just have some fun, here's the Black Clover multiversal meta. I'm gonna grab. This is not sound logic, but it was just to show you that like people will come up with the weirdest shit, and if there's a shred of evidence for it, they'll believe it. And hell, I get a lot of comments. I get people stating stuff where there's literally no evidence for it and they still believe it. So this is arguably more sound than a lot of comments I see. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is power scaling. These are fictional characters. This is not like anything that's really that important to the world. It's a wacky argument, but it's kind of funny. Like I can see like me arguing this and actually getting people to believe it, even though there's like no sound logic for it. Here's my logic. And this is a joke. In Black Clover, Rill got inspired by Noelle and her Valkyrie. And he drew Twilight Valhalla, and then he drew Odin himself. Now, this spell is not called Odin or anything, but it's called Master of Valhalla, or Lord of Valhalla, depending on the translation, or King of Valhalla. I've even seen King of Valhalla. So Master, Lord, King of Valhalla. In Norse mythology, that's Odin. And this looks like Odin. He has, one eye. That's the traditional, like, even though this is incorrect imagery, this is, like, a lot of art, how they drew the Norse gods or even Vikings back in the day, like this winged stuff. Because it was, like, I believe it was like Romanized, the Viking stuff. It was like Romanized. And even this, like, to me, this looks like Mimir's head. That, like, if you guys have played God of War, you know how Kratos has the head? In Norse mythology, Odin's supposed to have the head. So that looks like Mimir's head to me. Right there, that looks like a beard and 2 eyes and a nose that he has on his hip. It could be just his fur right here, but I've always seen this as Mimir's head. We'll have to wait for the anime, I guess. But this is definitely Odin. There's just no way around it. He's the Lord of Valhalla in Norse mythology. He created it. Now, the crazy thing with if he drew Odin and drew Valhalla, like, how strong is this? Like, and this would mean he would have to draw them and have like a knowledge, right, of what these characters are. It's when Dante reveals the Tree of Clover. All right, this is the wild shit. Like, okay, so this is the Tree of Cliffoff. The funny thing is this is an image that exists in our world, like pixel for pixel. You look at the Wikipedia for the Tree of Cliffoff. This is in there. This is the same exact image, just in Black Clover. This was made by Robert Flood. And now the interesting way we can extrapolate this is that in Black Clover, Japan is a country. It's the same exact geography, with the same provinces. Like Honshu is like a province in Japan, or a city, or a region. I can't remember which one. But that's also like how it is in the Land of the Sun. They have the same similar tradition, garb, and all of that. I'm gonna find the chapter that at least shows that the Land of the Sun looks like Japan. This looks like Japan. Land of the Sun. So this is Japan. Well, the reason for this is because it's likely that the Black Clover world takes place in the same world as Hungry Joker, because I'm not gonna be able to find this, but I have shown it before in videos. In Hungry Joker, Gildray's in it. And when somebody asked on the Black Clover Questions Brigade, is that Gildray in Hungry Joker? And Tabata just said yes. Tabata just says that yes, that's Gildray. So Gildray is literally in Hungry Joker, which would mean that because Hungry Joker is a manga that takes place in our modern day Earth, where like New York City is in it, the Statue of Liberty and all that shit, and Gildray is in both series, that means that because also Japan is in Black Clover, that they're in the same world, which means that if they're in the same worlds, that means they have our same religions and mythology. And this is supported by Dante having a literal image that exists in our world, and he has that to show the Tree of Cliffoff. And then, if you extrapolate further, if Rill got inspiration from Noel's Valkyrie to draw Valhalla, and Valhalla does the same exact stuff as Valhalla in the myths, because in the myths, Valhalla is a realm, Valhalla in Norse mythology, during Valhalla's twilight, which is, I think it's either dusk or dawn, or both, I can't remember exactly. But in Valhalla's twilight in Norse mythology, all of Valhalla's soldiers, which are called Einarjar, they become stronger, and they can't be killed. Which is exactly what Rill spelled. When they're in Twilight's Valhalla, the spell's called Twilight Valhalla, all of Rill's allies cannot die, and they become stronger. So, if Rill is just ripping Valhalla's Twilight from Norse mythology, because remember, Norse mythology exists in Black Clover, that means he's also ripping Odin from Norse mythology. And what did Odin do in Norse mythology? So this is Odin. These are his brothers, Vili and Ve. They fought Ymir, which is the first Jotun. The first giant, but he's really a Jotun. A Jotun, now this isn't really shown here, but in the myths of the Norse men, Ymir is an infinite-sized being. And not only that, but after Odin kills them, now, it is stated that he kills them with his brothers, but it's consistent that in Norse mythology, he was the one who did most of the work, or the highest percentage of the reason for how they won. After they kill Ymir, Odin takes Ymir's body and creates all of the 9 realms with it. Now, it's actually 7, because 2 of the realms existed before. Odin created 7 different universes and their space times, because Odin is the guy who created time for all these universes. So Odin created 7 universes. This puts Odin, the spell that Rel drew, at it's technically low multiversal, but it gets even crazier than that, because in Norse mythology, I think it's in Asgard. There are thousands, if not thousands, the countless of halls, which are essentially they're called halls, but they're really like realms for the gods. And in some myths, these are infinite-sized time spaces, and there are thousands to countless, which means that this makes Odin multiversal to multiversal plus, and Rill created Odin. So there's my multiversal Rill or multiversal Black Clover argument. It's not very sound because you can pick holes at it, but like this is what I'm saying when like people can take nothing and make something out of it, or they can take something very little and have just really interesting power scaling takes. But yeah, so like, I literally just was so bored one day doing cardio that I made up a multiversal Black Clover argument. And really, if you do look at it, there is evidence for it. I would say there's more evidence than not that Black Clover is the same world as Hungry Joker. And then that means that the religions and mythology of our world exist in Black Clover. And Rill drew that shit. So, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't use that seriously, but I think it's funny. Literally multiversal Black Clover, multiversal Rill, and Rill's like fodder. So, what do you mean there's no context? I just gave you the context. It's not valid. Like you could debunk it. Rill drew Odin, who got bodied by Megicula. That means Megicula's multiversal. Like that's the context.